Hey everyone, we're seeing decentralized networks everywhere these days, right? From how we share files to things like cryptocurrencies. But that brings up a really big question. When there's no one in charge, who can you actually trust? That's what we're going to break down today. How trust gets built, and maybe more importantly, how it gets broken in these peer-to-peer systems.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get right to the heart of the problem. Why trust is such a big deal in the first place. Then, we'll check out two main ways to solve it. One is all about judging nodes based on what they've done in the past, and the other is about using witnesses to verify their actions. And to wrap it all up, we'll put those two approaches side by side to see how they really compare.
Okay, so first things first. Let's really dig into the fundamental problem here. Why is trust such a massive hurdle in systems that are, by their very nature, supposed to organize themselves?
I mean, let's just put it plainly. If you don't have a central gatekeeper, what's stopping a bad actor from just waltzing in and causing total chaos?
And here's the thing you just can't get around. You have to assume they will. In any open, decentralized network, having malicious nodes isn't just a possibility, it's a flat-out inevitability. So the system's design has to account for this right from the get-go.
So what is it that makes these systems so vulnerable? Well, it's kind of a paradox, actually. Their greatest strengths are also their biggest weaknesses. Think about it. They're self-organizing, which means there's no central bouncer checking IDs at the door. Anyone can just join. And here's the really critical part. Each node only sees a tiny little piece of the overall puzzle. This creates the perfect blind spots for malicious behavior to hide in plain sight.
Okay, so that brings us to our first potential solution. If we can't vet nodes when they show up, maybe we can judge them by what they do once they're inside the system.
And that leads to a pretty intuitive idea, right? What if we just keep a running tab on everyone's behavior? Good actors get good reviews. Bad actors get bad ones. Seems simple enough.
This is the whole idea behind what's called a reputation system. You can basically think of it as a decentralized version of the 5-star rating you'd give a seller on Amazon or eBay. It's a mechanism that collects feedback from all over the network to build a trustworthiness score for every single participant.
So how does it work? It's pretty straightforward, actually. Two nodes have an interaction, a transaction. Afterwards, they share their experience with the rest of the network, kind of like leaving a review. Over time, all these recommendations get collected and crunched to calculate a credibility score. It's trust built on a collective memory, really.
But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. These systems have a breaking point, and it's surprisingly low. Research shows that once malicious nodes make up about 30% of the network, the whole system just collapses. Now, why is that? Well, at that tipping point, the bad actors can generate enough fake positive reviews for each other and enough fake negative reviews for the good guys that the trust scores become completely meaningless. You just can't believe them anymore.
And this really gets to the core weaknesses of these systems. For one, malicious nodes can collude, right? They can form little groups and just give each other glowing reviews to pump up their scores. They can spread false rumors and lies to absolutely tank the reputation of honest nodes. And on a really fundamental level, the system is based on hearsay. It often can't even prove a transaction actually happened. And what that all means is that it can only ever give you a probability of trustworthiness, never a certainty.
So if reputation is really just an educated guess, what do we do when we need something more solid? What if we need to move out of the fuzzy world of probability and into the concrete world of proof?
This forces us to ask a different kind of question. What if we built a system that doesn't just believe what other nodes tell it, but one that actually verifies it? A system that isn't based on what people say, but on hard, cold evidence.
And this brings us to a totally different concept: accountability. Instead of asking around to see who's trustworthy, an accountability system assigns a set of other nodes to act as witnesses. Their one and only job is to monitor another node's behavior and collect hard evidence if anything goes wrong.
So how does this actually work in practice? Well, each node has to keep a detailed, verifiable log of all its actions. You can think of it like a tamper-proof digital receipt book. Then, the witnesses come in and periodically audit these logs. If they find anything fishy, altered entries, missing pages, that log itself becomes the smoking gun. It's unalterable, cryptographic proof of misbehavior that can be shown to the entire network. It's kind of like having a team of auditors constantly checking the books 24/7. Okay, so now we've got two very different models for building trust. On one hand, you've got reputation, which is all about social proof and past behavior. On the other hand, you have accountability, which is based on verifiable evidence and auditing. So, let's put them head-to-head and see how they stack up. All right, here's the side-by-side comparison. Reputation systems, their basis of trust is probability. They're asking the question, is this node likely to be honest based on what others say? Now, accountability systems, they're based on proof. They ask a much tougher question. Can this node prove it behaved honestly? When it comes to weaknesses, reputation is super vulnerable to social manipulation, collusion, false reports, you name it. Accountability's main hurdle is more technical. It's the overhead of requiring verifiable logs for every single action. One isn't necessarily better than the other for all cases, but accountability gives you conclusive evidence when things go wrong.
And really, that brings us to the bottom line. This quote sums it up perfectly. The biggest problem with reputation systems is that they can never fully decide if a node could be trusted. A reputation score only represents the probability that a node is trustworthy. It's a powerful guess, but it's still just a guess.
And this leaves us with a really critical question for the future. As these decentralized systems become more and more embedded in our lives, for things that really matter, what do we value more? Is it a good reputation, which is easy to understand but also pretty easy to fake? Or is it provable honesty, which might be more complex under the hood, but is way, way more secure? The answer we choose is going to define the future of trust online.
And that's our look at building trust in peer-to-peer systems. If this explainer helped you get your head around the challenges, do me a favor and hit that like button. Share it with someone you think would find it interesting, and of course, subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks so much for tuning in.